Hey, have you wondered what's going on in the Huntsville real estate market from all this coronavirus? Today I'm looking at the daily trends over the past couple of weeks to see if there's been an impact, and I'm going to take a look back at March to see how we're doing compared to historically. Let's go. Hey guys, my name is Brandon Taylor. I'm with Capstone Realty. I am a former recovering engineer, so I love to dive into the numbers. Today we're looking at two sets of numbers. I'm going to dive into the daily metrics I'm following to see if there's an impact from the coronavirus. And I'm also going to take a look at March as a whole to see if we find any trends over the past couple of years that we are meeting or that are changing to see how we're doing. For a little more interaction, if you want to ask for a specific neighborhood or anything like that, send me a text or give me a call or an email. Also follow me on Instagram and Facebook at the below. Hope you give this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more like it. Send comments below, all that good stuff. I love to interact. I hope you will do it. I'll start off with the bottom line up front. Although business is not normal by any stretch of the imagination, we are still seeing a strong seller's market in Huntsville. The daily metrics that we've been following show us that there is some softening in the demand and mostly really holding steady. It's just not increasing like you might expect this time of year. But we also are seeing a strong number of listings still coming on the market. And when we take a step back, we see that we're still in a very strong seller's market, even with that softening. And we hit records this month for new listings and the number of houses that went pending in a month. So there's still a very active market. The bottom line up front. But now I'm going to dive into the charts and we're going to take a look at those numbers. So first we'll look at the daily metrics. There are two metrics that I follow and keep track of that are daily. That's the daily number of listings and the daily number of pendings. The reason I chose those is because they are immediate. We see a listing the day it comes on the market. We see a pending the day that it goes under contract. Now there are some weaknesses with this because pendings are not sales and listings are also not sales. And so it's not exact, but I think the trend is useful. Another thing about these numbers is they are not exactly the same sample. Pending numbers are provided by the MLS, and then I have to do a search to kind of get the listings. And so that's the whole county, whereas I'm not exactly sure what the pending numbers, how they're filtered. There's some from Limestone County in there for sure, but I think the trend is important though. So we're going to stick with the trends. We're going to watch them, but don't compare the numbers exactly. First up, start on the supply side. Here are the number of new listings. So looking at this chart, you see that there's a lot of information on this chart. It's got the histogram with 3 daily moving averages, the 7-day, 14-day, and 28-day. So that gives us a little bit of a line to see how those trends are going. And then there's also a trend line on there as well. You can see there is definitely a regular rhythm to houses being listed, with a lot of houses being listed into the week and very few being listed on the weekends. Because that's why we like the 7 and 14 day, because it gives a whole week of data on those things. Trend-wise, early in the month you saw that there was an increase with the red line being 7-day moving average on top of both the 14 and 28 day, which says we are escalating. But then around the 11th, right around when the state of emergency was made in Alabama, that 7-day dropped, the 14-day dropped, both below the 28-day moving average for about a week. All of them were below the trend line. Then around the 22nd, we saw that spike came back up and the 7-day moving average got above the 14 and the 28-day and has stayed there except for a little blip last week. All that to say that the trend lines are still showing us that we are increasing our number of listings. All right, next let's take a look at the pending sales chart. This is a chart of the number of pending sales we saw in the market. And we have a histogram with a daily count, and then we have the 7-day, 14-day, 28-day moving average, and we'll look at those trends. So here we go. So what we saw is that we were hitting a peak of almost 30 houses a day on March 13th. But then there was a downtick, and we got all the way down to where we were in the 22 to 24 range for those moving averages until last week. And last week there was an uptick, and we saw that tick back up to 27 to 28 pending listings a day, which is holding strong with what we saw early in the month. And so while we had a down move for a couple of weeks, it looks like we have recovered back to where we were before. So it's kind of held steady overall during this period. It's a pretty flat curve that's there. All right, now we want to look at the monthly metrics. We're still looking at supply and demand. We're going to look at supply as far as active listings as well as new listings over the course of the month. Then we're going to look at demand. We're going to look at closed sales, pending sales, and days on market for demand. Then we're going to look at a ratio of that we call months of inventory or absorption rate. Same thing, it basically says, hey, with the inventory we have, if we sold as many as we did last month, how many months of inventory we have. That gives us a good metric on if we're in a buyer's market or a seller's market. Finally, we'll look at the most important thing for you, which is the price of your home, what you'll be paying, what your house could be worth, and what those trends say. So let's dive in. First up, we're going to look at the number of homes for sale in Madison County. As you can see, this number has continued to go down over the past 3 years. It's really flat month over month with a 1.1% increase, which is basically none. We're talking about like 10 houses, very small increase. But year over year, we're down 21.1% year over year. And last year we had low inventory. So we're continuing to see low inventory in the market. Next, we'll look at new listings. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that we had a record for the most listings in a month. We are over 900 new listings this month in Madison County, which is higher than we had at the peak of last year. It's an increase of 17.9% in February, 18.7% over last March, 8.7% over last March. So while we haven't seen a net increase, we only saw a net increase of 10 more houses on the market. We know that they are listing a lot faster, which implies that they must be selling faster. Next, we'll transition a little bit to look at the demand side. So we'll start with closed sales. Closed sales is the most important part because it's actually the sale happened. It wasn't just a potential sale. So March was up both month over month. We went up 16.9% over February, and year over year, we were up 8.7%. This number wouldn't be impacted by COVID-19 though. And so because most of these deals would have been made in January, February, or maybe even earlier for them to close in March. So you wouldn't see a big impact on closed sales. So that metric wouldn't have seen that, but it would give us an overall trend to follow. And maybe in the April and May, we'll be able to see what those numbers continue to do. We'll look at pendings like we did on the dailies to see if there is a trend change. What we see on the pending sales is that there is not a trend change. So while we saw some softening in the daily numbers and said that maybe it's not as hot as it could have been, it's still the most pending homes to go under contract in a month in the 3 years that we're looking at. So more than last June or July where we set records. So we're up 11.5% month over month, 11.2% year over year, and we're higher than the peak we were last year. So it suggests that there are lots of buyers. And when you compare this pending sales chart to the new listings chart, they're in lockstep. And so that implies and probably points to that we are supply constrained, which makes sense because our supply is low. And so it's not based on how many willing buyers there are, it's based on how many listings are out there is what is determining how many houses sell. Next thing we'll look at is average days on market. We are down to 37 for the average days on market across the county. This is down month over month by 10%, year over year by 34.5%. So while we're not at the all-time low, last October was 33 days, we're not far above it, only 4 days above it. Next chart is to look at the months of supply, and this is a simple ratio of how many houses were on the market divided by how many houses sold last month, and we call it the absorption rate. The basic idea is that how long would we have to sell out of houses. A neutral market is considered about 6 months of inventory, and we are at 1.5 months. So it's a very low inventory. As you can see, it's been the lowest over this time period county-wide, which isn't surprising considering we saw the strong sales, the low inventory. All that leads us to look at median sales price. I prefer to follow the median over the average. Average can be really thrown off if one of those $3 million houses sell or something like that. So we're going to try to watch that. So here we have the median. As you can see, there's a definite trend up and to the right of growth, which is not surprising when you know that there's low supply, good demand, and increasing prices. So bottom line, what does all this mean? The daily metrics point us to that there has been some softening of demand caused by coronavirus because the trend was moving up and then it flattened and stayed strong, but we still have a record number of pendings. And so I think that's important to point out is that we are still in a strong seller's market despite all the weirdness that is going on. So what does that mean? It means buyers have to be aggressive with offers and with shopping. Give me a call and I can do phone tours, virtual tours. Those things are already set up by other agents, so they can just send us a virtual tour they've already done and we can talk about if we want to go see it or not. So I do think being a little pickier about what you actually walk through is probably wise. We're still seeing multiple offers very quickly, so you need to be aggressive in those offers. And sellers, this is a great time to list. Obviously, it is very much a personal decision as far as health and well-being of your family, but there are things we can do to work around it to try to limit how many people come through, make rules about one person at a time, no kids. Those things are in place and people are doing their due diligence to try to keep everyone safe. So all in all, I am watching the daily trends as well as the overall trends. If you want something specific about a neighborhood or a specific price point you're looking at, let me know. But yeah, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, hit them down in the comments, send me a DM. I would love to talk with you and connect with you if you have any questions. Thanks a lot, guys. Hope you enjoyed this and got a lot out of it. I'm always here and always available. Thanks a lot. Bye.